Research Centre seminar series. I'm Dr. Chyi Lin Lee. Today's seminar is being held on the traditional lands of the Gadigal people, the Eora Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past and present, and especially to any First Nations people who are joining us today. In a moment, I'm going to ask Professor Hazel Easthope to introduce our speaker for today. But first, a quick bit of housekeeping. If you're joining online, please mute your microphone and turn off your camera during the presentation. Then when we get to the Q&A, if you'd like to turn these back on, then of course you're very welcome to. You can also put a question into the chat, and then my associate will be monitoring the chat for questions, and we can ask them. So now, I'd like to introduce Professor Easthope. She's Deputy Director of City Futures, to introduce today's speaker.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to our Friday afternoon seminar. I'm very pleased to introduce you today to Professor Chyi Lin Lee. Chyi Lin is the Discipline Director of Construction Management and Property here at UNSW, and he's also a former director. I've been provided with an out-of-date bio. Chyi Lin is the happily former director.
So be happier, being former.
And also a City Futures Research Centre fellow. We're very pleased to have him come and present to us today. He's going to talk about how carbon regulation initiatives influence corporations' ESG actions in the real estate sector, and Chyi Lin is an expert in the real estate space. So without further ado, please come.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Hazel. Thanks for the introduction. First of all, thanks City Future for having me. Thanks Futures for having me today, and let me to share some of the research we did for, well, this is one of the funded research from Property Research Trust, which is a UK-based, formerly it's called RICS Research Trust, and then just changed it to Property Research Trust 2 years ago. So this research here really we're generally interested in looking at how carbon regulations will have an impact on the property sectors. Okay, so before we start, I want to do a quiz or a survey. There's no any approval for this survey, so I need to acknowledge, but just a quiz. Maybe you treat it as a quiz. I changed the wording, a quiz. So if you have your mobile phone with you, if you just scan the QR code, there's only one question. Don't worry, it's not going to be a lot, a full questionnaire. Just one question. Will you agree climate change is real? That's it. And you put it in, and we see how it goes. I'm not sure people online can do that. Maybe those online, if you use your mobile phone, you also can scan the QR code. You should be able to do it. Yeah. So Richard and I spent some time to find out what's the way to show the result. But I think the best way is maybe I read out the result rather than show it here. So let me see. Okay. Have everyone done it? Anyone need extra time to do it? If not, I think I can just tell the result. I think if this is real survey, people might start the questions why everyone agree. The answer is yes. No one said no. So I think this is not surprising. But anyway, so that's good. It means our cohort have we share similar view, or not similar view. Maybe easier for me to sell some other ideas later on. So, okay, so it's good to know everyone in this room to believe climate change is real. Okay, so for this presentation, I'll probably start with introductions, like telling you why we're doing this research, what's the rationale, what's the motivations and contribution as well, and the objective of this research. And then we'll follow with some of the methodology and the data we use. Don't worry with the methodology, we want to just we can skip the modeling, etc. Okay, and we'll show you importantly show you the result and the conclusions, what we found, and the implication as well. So for this study here, we reckon we probably is the first attempt to study how risks or property companies, listed property companies, ESG activities are affected by carbon pricing mechanisms. What it means here is carbon tax and ETS. I think we used to have carbon tax 10 years ago, and then we get rid of it. So whether that's an impact. At that time, there was a huge debate whether we should have one. The impact is significant, blah, 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 blah. So, okay, we put in the property context. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so that is what we try to do. So we based on literature review, we don't think any study have been done about that. So we try to provide some evidence how carbon pricing initiative can have an impact. Maybe it doesn't, maybe it does. If it does, how? And what are the channels, okay, which have an impact? So basically what we're more interested in is because of the carbon regulations, would that make property companies or property developers, etc., care more about sustainability, etc. Okay, so that is what we really interested with. So we think since we've done the literature review, we never seen study had been done in this space. So we think it's quite important in this space for doing this. So let's start with ESG and risk. I think if we speak with the property developers or any property practitioner, they keep saying, oh, ESG is big thing, okay? So it's growing attentions among the ESG, all the property investors, okay? CBRE, one of the largest property consultants firms globally, they done a survey. They asked all the executives in around the world. So, well, they are slightly different from us. I think 83% of the executives think, climate change ESG is important. Here is 100%, right? But we're close enough with that. Like 83% of the CEO, right? Globally, they think this is important. And they also see green building are very important. Okay? They need to do something. They need to engage more green buildings. Okay? What's more important is based on the survey, half of them say, because this is so important, we have to rebalance our property portfolio. So what does this mean? They either buy more green buildings or they sell the buildings which are not green. Okay? So that's clearly we can see this is quite important. See if there's a trend in the industry as well. This is getting serious. So if you look at it quickly, the literature review, we found ESG somewhat under research. Okay, not many studies have been done about ESG, particularly in the property context. Okay, there are a lot of studies have been done about governance, how governance will affect risks, risk decisions making, etc., or property companies decision, CEO decision makings. Okay, what's more important? A lot of studies even looking at how the good governance, okay, can limit some of the. Well, there are a lot of literature looking at the behavior bias. Some of the CEO are a little bit overconfident. Okay, and things should be like that, but it shouldn't be. But so a lot of studies have been done in the literature review looking at how good governance can control that. Okay, don't give the too much power to the CEO. What if they make wrong decisions, overconfidence? What that will have? That will be harmful. So a lot have been done. A lot of studies on looking at green buildings, whether by doing green buildings you get higher price or higher rent, etc., or lower vacancy rate, etc. Some study looking at how environmental will have an impact on the financial impact on the property companies. Okay. However, very few study looking at the ESG determinants. Okay, so this is something what we want to do. We try to understand why people doing ESG. Okay. So one of the key things came out from the literature review will be one thing will affect ESG is about the institutional framework. There are a lot of study in the mainstream business study has done it. They found mixed result. Actually, they say some studies say okay, institutional framework important. Some say not really. Okay, so what happened here is some study try to understand why there are difference. And why we get the mixed result. And one of the things came up is industry challenges. So because all the mainstream study that consider all sectors, including property, manufacturing, every different sectors. Okay, so different sector have different requirements for different priorities. That's why they get mixed result. So that's what's from the literature. So because of that, then we start to ask ourselves, okay, how we want to contribute? Okay, maybe real estate sectors or maybe real estate data set can help to address these questions because they get mixed result. One of the reasons they get mixed result because of their different sectors. Okay, so we try to do, okay, we just do for REITs or property sectors. Okay, and this is a big and homogeneous sectors. Okay, so if you look at the US context, REITs or listed property company in the US contribute around 3.2 million jobs in the US context, and then the labor income is around $200 billion a year. What's more important, apart from the US, if you look at globally, we got around 2,400 property companies listed globally, okay, and it's around $3 trillion market cap. It's big sectors, okay. So what's more important when we think about this carbon thing? We're back to the carbon. For the property sectors, we contribute around 36% of the global energy consumptions. We use a lot of electricities, okay, like you can see here, right? We're using a lot of electricities, and we generate a lot of carbon emissions because of the energies, okay? So a lot of policy, government policy have been implemented, try to control this kind of, this kind of things, the carbons, etc. The major tool will be ETS, emission trading scheme, and carbon tax. We do have one carbon tax 10 years ago, and then we get rid of it. Okay, and what's more important for property, we all have seen in the property sectors, they also have more initiatives other than just carbon tax. We have seen what we call the green building certifications. It's compulsory to disclose nowadays in the office building. If you're more than 1,000 square meters, you need to disclose what is the energy rating. Just like you're buying a computer or monitor, is it 5-star, 3-star, 1-star? So a lot of regulations around that. So the question here is, because of this institutional framework, different countries do it differently. Some, like we said earlier, some country has strong support, particularly if you go to EU, European country, their ETS is not big deal. They all pay for it, they pay carbon tax, etc. But we think this is a big thing. We don't like it in Australia. Okay, different countries do it differently. How effective are these policies? I think because different countries do it differently, leads us to ask a question. Okay, maybe we can test the effectiveness of these policies. So you might wondering how real estate ESG performance and carbon pricing regulation related. How these two things combine or related into one to others, since they're two different things. As I said earlier, building is one of the main sectors to contribute to a lot of carbons. And what we're really good with for building sectors is what we call indirect carbon emissions, or what we call scope 2 emissions. So if you look at this little diagram here, so carbon accountings try to define carbon in different way. Like scope 1 means direct emissions, electricity company or manufacturing company, they generate electricity, directly generate carbons. Scope 2 is indirect. It's like a good example, we use electricities. We are indirectly consume or generate carbons. And the scope 3 is more about supply chain. So whether we like it or not, building contribute a lot for the indirect scope 2 carbon emissions. Okay, so and what's more important, if you look at globally, there are 74 countries around the world, they already have either ETS and carbon tax, half. Okay, 37 of them using ETS, 37 using carbon tax. Okay, so give you in the global scale, a lot of countries think this is important, we need to do something on it. And that's why they have similar policy have been implemented. Okay, so what is carbon pricing initiative? What is it? Well, basically, make it easier. Just basically putting a price on carbon. Okay, you put a price on carbon, And then you can either do it through the carbon tax. I just see it as a tax. The more you consume, that's fine. You pay more tax. The idea is because of tax, it will reduce the consumption behavior. There's another way. It's called ETS, Emission Trading Scheme. I said, no, we don't put tax. It's not a tax. It's we put a cap on each company or each industry, how much carbon you can contribute. Okay? So that's what we call ETS. And if you contribute more than what you're allowed to do, you need to buy it from somewhere else. So that becomes the market mechanisms. So as I said just now, I quickly, ETS generally is just put a cap on total gas emissions you can contribute, okay? And some industry might able to easily achieve the target. They don't need so much. Once they have that, they can sell the allowance to someone else who need it. And how much that will be really is the demand and supply questions, okay? So if there are a lot of demand, not a lot of supply, the price can be very, very expensive. Okay, so there are a lot of policy discussion has said this is actually good policy because that's really forced all the industry to think about how you want to reduce the carbon emissions. Okay, another way is carbon tax. Just set the price by the government. Just tell you how much you need to pay per ton. That's it. Okay, so but it has no target. You can consume as much as you can as long as you're willing to pay the price. Okay. So generally, as this is a simple diagram, as I said earlier, the ETS, anyone consume more than what they need to get it from someone else, buy from someone else. But if you consume, it means less than what you allowed it, they sell your allowance to someone else. Okay. So back to here. What we want to know, what we're really interested is, okay, there are big carbon mechanisms happening overseas, well, not necessarily in Australia, but overseas. It's a big thing, okay? So we want to know how if your company, we all know property company nowadays, it's a global companies. They can be based in Australia, then you can see land lease here, you can go to Singapore, you will see land lease in Singapore. What if this becomes a big thing, they can move their company HQ to somewhere else easily, right? So we want to know whether this has an impact on how they contribute to the ESG commitments, particularly the environmentals. Okay. So we do some hypotheses. We research a hypothesis, look at a different theory, and then we come up with enough institutional theory. Generally, it suggests that if you implement the carbon initiative, you're more likely to encourage people to do ESG because the whole institution, everyone's doing it. You don't want to see left behind, not doing nothing, So that's why we came up with the hypothesis of carbon initiatives should lead to the better ESG performance. So how we want to do the analysis? We use the data from MSCI. They put out a score for each company for their performance in environmental, social, and governance, and overall as well. Okay, so. And what's more important is if you look at this diagram here, this is not just give the score for each category, they also have subcategory as well, like climate change, how they do, under environmental, how they do with climate change, natural resources, and environmental opportunities, etc. Even though environmental opportunities, that's something directly linked to us. What we're really interested will be opportunity in green building. So they do a lot of sub rating as well for each company. Okay. So this is the data we use. We use a global data. Whatever property companies or listed property company available from the database, we download all their data. We include that in our analysis. So you can see from here we have quite diverse. We have from Emirates to all the way to US, including Australia, etc. Just want to draw attention to Australia. As well, we can see we used to have ETS in 2012, and then but we abolished in 2018. So people with questions how we deal with that, we will put the number of years for if 12 to 15 we put yes for they do have ETS, but afterward we put 0, there's no ETS. So as you can see from here, many countries do have ETS and carbon tax. Some of them, like Canada and Switzerland, they even have both. They think ETS is not good enough, but give you carbon tax as well. And they give you both. Okay, so that's the one. US, although they do have a national level, a lot of states they might have to do the ETS by the state base. Okay, and California has one. Texas probably wouldn't do it. You know why? so it's state based. They do have one. Okay, and we've done the research with a lot of study arguing. There's a huge debate between civil law and common law, how they have an impact. We're not interested, but we control that as well. We're acknowledging there's a huge debate about which one is better. We don't want to get there, but as a control variable, we try to control that as well. Okay, so this is the methodology. Don't worry with the modeling. What we're really interested is whether this carbon tax and ETS variable are significant or not. So these are summary statistics for all the variables we use. We're not just using ESG, MSCI ESG data, okay? But we're also using try to control with the fund level data, the financial data of the firm, the country-based data for the country where they're based, employment rate, life expectancy, etc. for that particular countries. We refer to HQ where the HQ located. And we also put out some legal environments data as well, like whether their country is using common law or civil law, etc. And whether they have ETS or not. Okay. So these are the quick results here. If you look at here for ETS, generally it's all positive and statistically significant. Okay, we've done a lot. We start with no control variables. Okay. And then we start with country control variables. We introduce firms control variables. Okay, and someone arguing US data say it's too big, you should exclude the US company. We did that. And someone probably US has argued, since US companies, US sample size so big, why can't you just run one for the US? And in the US, different states do have ETS. So we do that one as well. We a much smaller sample size, but just for the US. And regardless what we do, we get a very consistent picture. ETS is significantly priced. So it means if your property company is located in a country or in a location with ETS, you're more likely to do well for your environmental score, because the ETS might force the company to do something about the environmental. Okay, whether you like it or not, you have to do something, right? In order to reduce your carbon emissions, and then you reduce how much. Well, first, if you're able to reduce your carbon emissions successfully, you can sell your allowance to someone else. You can make money from it, right? So I think that provides some incentive to a lot of companies try to do something. And interestingly, for carbon tax, it's not significant. So it means that if your company located in a place which has a carbon tax, it doesn't really help the company to think what should they do for carbon tax. They might still doing what they're doing. Okay. So, but if you have both, again, or generally that many because of the ETS, like remember Switzerland have ETS and carbon tax. If you are located in those countries, you're most likely to have a better score for your environmental score. Okay. So that's what we found. So as a quick summary, take up from it is, if you implement ETS, generally the property company likely to do better for their environmental. Okay, and this support the North institution hypothesis, means regulation does have the impact how to regulate organizational behavior. Okay, so and no evidence for carbon tax. it's not too surprising. There are a lot of literature arguing which one is better, whether carbon tax or ETS are better. In general, in this case, I think can be used to support what we found is carbon tax basically just a type tax. You just pay what you're supposed to pay as long as you afford to do it. But ETS is different. That provides some incentive actually for firm to think about, if I reduce my carbon emissions, I can sell my allowance to someone else by making money from it. So that kind of incentive for them, particularly if the price of it is very, very high. They say, hey, I should do something. So that's why they really committed in, maybe green building, etc., to reduce the carbon emissions. Okay. So we do the same thing for others. Remember, MSCI data give us ESG, right? With what I showed you just now, just environmental. We also have social, governance, and overall score. Okay, and in general, anyway, so if you can see from here, governance has an impact, but social and overall score doesn't really have a strong impact on it. Okay, so well, this is not very surprising because we all know carbon tax and ETS more related to environmental than social and governance. So if you're hoping carbon in pricing initiative can solve ESG, probably you're thinking too much. The best you can do is just for the environmental. It can't help really for social and governance. And even the overall is including all these three pillars. How about have a closer look? Okay, we say, okay, if your company is located in a country with an ETS, you're more likely to do well, right? You're more likely to have a higher environmental score. Okay, so how they do it, how they achieve higher score? There's a terminology in the literature, is what we call greenwashing. They're not really doing well, but they're really good in presenting themselves, right? That they get high score, right? That's something we try to find out whether it's the case here. What we're really keen to know is if they're really committed in the environmental, and then they get higher score, not presenting themselves to get a higher score. I think a long time ago, I can't disclose which company, but it's a very large mining companies. So what they do is, what one of the brokers came to talk as a guest lecturer, they said, look, we have this mining company, would like to have a new office in Sydney. I want that to be 6-star office building. So why? Because we are a mining company. We want to find some way to show we are really good at sustainability, environmental. So we try to avoid the kind of greenwashing activities. So that's why we're really keen to know what channel, how they do it. Okay. So remember the MSCI data I showed you earlier? They're not just giving you the score of ESG. They also break it down to, for environmental, we break it down to climate change, natural resources, pollutions, and environmental opportunities, and we even further break it down. So we're going to look at it one by one. So first we start with that 4 big sub-team. So what we can see from here, so for ETS, it's only significant for environmental opportunities. So for those who have an ETS, for firms who are located in the country with an ETS, they're more likely to have a higher score for environmental opportunities category, not for others. Not climate change, natural resources might really have impact, but not too much. Waste management might not be significant. The one really matter is environmental opportunities. So this is what we say, okay, maybe this is the channel how they're able to help them to achieve higher score, right? So I don't forget for environmental opportunity, there's a category called green building. They engage in green buildings. So we're really interested to see whether it's property, well, don't forget our sample is property firms, so property sectors, right? So this should be highly relevant to them, okay? So whether they engage more, they buy more green buildings or the retrofit the buildings to make it green. So we do the furthest, before before this one, let me show. So we do a further test there. So for the green buildings, again, we look at the ETS. It generally is positive and statistically significant in most of the human management and overall score. So this leads us to come back to the earlier. So generally, if you are located in a country, a company located in a country with ETS, you're more likely to do more. You try to capitalize the environmental opportunity, try to use big green buildings, etc., in order to help you to achieve a higher score. Okay, rather than greenwashing. Okay, try to find a way to present yourselves. Get good people to present the data, whatever data you have. So that is what we found there. And generally, that also, against all this for ETS, carbon tax not significant at all. So conform with what they said, ETS generally incentivize stakeholders to think about what they can do in order to make the business more sustainable. Okay. So we do a lot of robustness checks. Referee will ask, X, Y, and Z. So one of the questions is the method we use is different in difference. So commonly been asked, so there's an assumption for the ID approach is common trend assumptions. So we test these common trend assumptions, whether it's there or not. So what we want to ensure is none of these point outside of this blue chart here. Okay, the bar here. So generally, that our assumption is okay. So the ID approach is okay. No issues with the method we use. Okay. So some of the referee my questions. You got this result because you use this method rather than X method rather than Y method. So we according to this method should be okay. And we even as I said earlier, if you look back to the literature, there are a lot of debate about should we use civil law or common law, which one is better. I don't have any positions on this. I don't really care, to be honest. Really care. So what we do here is we take it out, we break it. Although we control the variable, we have a control variables to control it, but we break the sample into two different samples. One is civil law, one is common law. Didn't really change anything. We're still getting ETS will have a positive impact. Okay, and we also do multi-level regressions models. We try to control the country level and firm level differences, variations between them, try to minimize the impact. Against, we get this consistent picture, which is if you are REITs or listed property companies, if you're located in a country with an ETS, you're more likely to do better for your environmental score. Okay, and the last the balance check with some of the country we have very small sample size, only 10 companies, particularly in emerging country, there are not too many listed property company in the country. So we do some wild cluster boosted simulations to simulate the particularly for small sample size. Again, it's not an issue. We're still getting the same figures. Okay, same findings. Okay, so what's the implication from here? Generally, our finding is very consistent. If your company located in an ETS, with an ETS, they're probably likely to force you to do more about green building, etc. And then you have a higher score compared to a company without an ETS. Okay, so what's the implication? I think there's a strong policy implication here. Is policymakers should, if you really care about this, you should think about having a ETS rather than carbon tax. Okay, if you want to encourage the ESG practice among the property companies. Okay, we confine our study to properties companies, but that probably apply to all different. But anyway, we combine the property. So at least for property companies, and I know a lot of countries are considering whether they should have an ETS or carbon tax. A good example, Malaysia is going to do it. I think they're likely to do it in 2025. But I think in Australia, we've been silent on this space. We don't even want to talk about it. So it's getting a lot of countries are doing it. I think, as I showed you earlier, 74 countries already have it. Okay, that you will see more emerging countries going to do it, and yeah, and if you really want to do it, more effective way probably is ETS compared to carbon tax. Okay, as a quick conclusions here, different institutional framework does matter. Okay, whether if you're located in a country, how that country is governance does have an impact on the practice of companies, how they're going to behave, etc. And the role of ETS will clearly show the role of ETS that generally will help to build the cultures or force the company to think about how they want to help to become more sustainable. And as I said earlier, ETS carbon tax, you probably need to have something very stronger, strict rules, right? Give you a quota, this is the X amount. I don't care how you achieve it, you need to make it happen. Okay, if you can achieve it, fantastic. If you can't, buy it for someone else. That will cost you a lot of money. So that kind of rules will be probably more effective than carbon tax. Okay, and lastly, I just want to acknowledge the funding from Property Research Trust. We can't do this without the funding from them. Like the MSCI data, we use them to buy the data, etc. So I think this is the end of my presentations. I'm happy to for you to have any questions or comments for me. More than appreciated to listen to the comment and questions. Thank you.
Great, well, thank you. That's brilliant. So we have about 20 minutes now. If people have got some questions, either in the room or online.
Yes.
Is there any evidence that the presence of ETS or CT in a country drives investors to another country, or is there any?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Whether because they've got ETS here,
Yeah,
I don't like it, I move to somewhere else.
yeah.
We don't see any. Well, at least we haven't seen any evidence or any statistic about a particular company reallocate from one country to another countries. But okay, I know it's a big decision for a company to allocate from one country to another. But even in the US, like remember we said in the US, some state does have ETS, some don't. But we didn't see anything like any companies moving from California to Texas. We didn't see that as well. So I think gradually people just accepting. Maybe it's not big enough for them, forcing them to move from one place to another. Yeah. Yeah. That's a very interesting question. Maybe you can find more the statistics, can do more analysis on this. Very interesting questions. Yeah. Yes, Hazel.
Thanks. Fabulous presentation. I'm wondering, I'm really curious about why ETS has the significant relationship and carbon tax doesn't. One hypothesis I might have, and I'm wondering if you know the answer, is it about how much it costs? Like, is it more expensive to not abide by ETS than it is to pay carbon tax? If you had higher carbon taxes, do you think you might get a different result?
Yes. I think you are right. I think one of the based on literature, it's not the focus of our papers about carbon tax and ETS, which one is more effective. But you raise a very good questions. ETS set the as I said, it's a market and supply, demand and supply. You let the market to decide what the price is. So I think there are some study which shows that the price is quite much more expensive than carbon tax, because if the demand is high, supply is low, then you need to pay a higher price. But carbon tax has been fixed, and don't forget, carbon tax is fixed by the government. And government might under pressure, like say, if you set a very high price, my energy bill will be X amount, Y amount, that kind of political things. But if you go back to ETS, let the market decide. Market tell, the government citizen, nothing to do with me, the market things, right? So, absolutely, the cost is the key one. Another thing based on literature, what we found is, as what I think I mentioned earlier, ETS provides incentive for people to, say for example, to green building. By retrofit your buildings, you reduce your carbon emissions. I don't need that allowance, that much X amount allowance anymore. I can sell it to someone else who need it. Maybe someone from mining company, or maybe manufacturing companies, they might need it. So I can make money from it as well. So I think building industry is a very good position in this. I don't know whether you agree or not. For these carbon things, carbon emission things, if we retrofit our buildings, we do do something more sustainable, we can easily reduce our carbon emissions. Unlike other sectors like electricity company, if they want to use renewable energy, it's huge amount of cost. But for us, compared to how much they need to pay cash probably is not the right word, but it's not that significant as others industry. So we have a lot of opportunity for us to reduce our carbon emissions than others industry.
Can I follow up on that? I don't know if you looked at this, but were the companies dumping their non-green buildings,
Yeah.
or were they retrofitting their existing stock, or do you know how they'd respond?
That's really interesting. We do look at that. That's the second part of research we didn't really present here. The second part of research, which we're looking at the company, how they react to it. Whether they can, if they want them to be more sustainable, they can do several things, right? First, they sell all the non-green buildings. Second, they retrofit, make them greener. Third, they buy more green buildings, so they see like the portfolio looks like greener. We look at that actually, and what's the impact? Generally, what we found is those companies before the ETS, if they're already doing well in environmental area, they're more likely just retrofitting and do green building rather than selling. But for those companies, they're not doing very well, even before the ETS. The easiest way for them to get out of it is to sell non-green building. I don't want to invest. I'm not keen to invest. I just want to get rid of them. So that's interesting. What we found is interesting. So that's why we see those who didn't do very well for the environmental commitments before the ETS, they have a higher return. And how they achieve it? Because they just sell the property which is non-green and get it out there, and you can see the balance sheet all of a sudden, jump up, and so they get higher return. So that is what we found as well. But it's not here, but in the later part of the project, we do find that. But you raise a very interesting question. That's true. I think yes, depends to the company. Some company, if they're doing quite well in environmental, they're more likely engage with retrofitting and buy more green or develop more green building. But some who are not doing well before the ETS, they'll continue not believing in it, but they need to get aware of it. Easiest way, sell the non-green. So then you see higher return for them as well. Yeah.
Trouble is now there's not a market for those buildings.
No market for that's true.
We've seen in the last year that people don't want even A-grade buildings that aren't conforming to environmental standards.
Yes, absolutely right, Peters. You are right. I think
the devaluation is massive.
Yes, absolutely. I think like in Australia, we have this compulsory disclosure, right? So if you're not 4-star, you're going to kick out all the government agency. Because the government agency
won't lease.
They won't lease you. They won't be your tenants. You immediately kick them out. So I think you either retrofit those buildings or they sell it. But like Peter said, maybe no demand there. If you are not you don't want yours to get 1-star, just like buying a TV, you still only 1-star. You have a lot of questions. Is it really 1-star? It's a good price. Yes, it's a good price, but only 1-star. You might not necessarily would like to pay premium for going for 5-star, right? But if you look at it just 1-star, you have a lot of question mark in your mind. Can it be nicer? So yeah, it's a good deal. It's a cheap price, but that means discount, right? So that's true. That's true. That's market. Mm-hmm.
You spoke about the performance of the real estate companies with the ETS, etc. From a financial perspective, but are we seeing significant carbon reduction measurements from these organisations adopting the ETS or the carbon tax regime? Or was that not something that you looked into specifically?
We don't have the carbon emissions data for each company. The problem is, I don't think there's a mechanism to force every single company to disclose what the carbon emissions of the company. It's up to the company to disclose voluntarily. So there's a database called CDP, I think it's Carbon Disclosure Project. They collect a lot of data for different companies, including property companies, but it's voluntary. It's up to decide whether they want to disclose or not. So someone who are not doing well, they might simply say, I can't be bothered. Just don't want to be disclosed. Let everyone know I'm not doing well. So someone doing well, absolutely, they want people to know I'm doing quite well in this space. So unfortunately, we don't have these data we want mandatory rather than voluntary. So that's the problem. Mm-hmm. Yes, sure.
I like this idea that there's a financial incentive to make it more green. But I'm not wondering, is it that you can actually measure the cost of capital for the different companies, like how much they price their bonds at, things like that, to see whether or not actually by being more environmentally conscious, you can, for example, get cheaper loans to build more buildings? Is there a way of like linking up how much your cost of capital is for these investments? And I also want just to understand it better, is it the construction phase that's the main culprit, or is it the operation phase that's the main culprit in this? I don't know if there's any study. And lastly, I want to know, because it's all about money, does this impact the cost of housing at all?
Cost of housing. Okay. All right. Okay. Two questions. Right? So I try to recall. The first question is about the cost of capitals.
Cost of capital?
Second one is
construction or operation.
Construction or operation, and the last one is housing. Okay. So let's do with the first one, cost of capitals. We try to control the firm financial situations, including cost of capitals, like the leverage level, etc. But we didn't just a control variable. We didn't drill down to how that will really have an impact. But yeah, that is a good suggestion. We might look at it. Although we control it, but we didn't really further study whether that really has impact on their behavior, etc. Good point. Well, I can't answer that one. So that's the one. Second one was operation. Operation, yes. For all of this, it's more operational. These are all the resident investment trusts. They are operational. So give you good examples. Westfield, it's REITs. You go to most of the shopping centers, they're all owned by REITs. So particularly in Australia, all the commercial property, 70% owned by them. You have Westfields, now it's called Centres. MP Capitals, Texas own a lot of office buildings. Charter Hall, I think they are quite. I think my understanding, they just bought one of the student accommodations around the corner there. Charter Hall groups. Don't believe that even in Western Sydney in Parramatta, the city campus, the owner is Charter Hall. It's not Western Sydney University. So they are everywhere. So all these. So answer your questions. Yes, operational rather than what they do. They are allowed to do property development as well, but it's not the main business. Like Merwex, they do a lot of property developments, etc. Yeah, so it's more. I think I would like to say most of the sample size are particularly this global one. So some country like in Hong Kong, REITs are not allowed to do property development. So I would like to say because of global data set, there are more operationals than constructions. The last question about housing. Oh, I don't know. I don't know whether there's an impact on housing on here. So we are looking at the fund level. So apparently some of these like Merwex and Lendlease, they're on the sample size. I'm not sure whether how that affect the housing market directly or indirectly. At least from our study, we can't tell. Okay. Maybe, but it's a good area for research for the next level, maybe. Yeah.
I think I can help answer the cost of capital question. When we're now looking at 5 and 6 star Green Star rated buildings, there's a significant capitalisation difference between those buildings now and anything that's sitting at a 3 or 4 star sort of rating. So I think the simple answer is yes, there is a premium in the capital markets, certainly with regards to 5 and 6 star buildings.
And I think also they are currently talking about a lot of green bonds. They're willing in the US. I think they are talking about if you engage in anything is green, I can give you some discount for the bond if you want the institutional investor accept. Okay, I'm not going to get X amount. I give you some discount because it's green. I think there are a lot of discussion in the US, but whether the take up how big of it, I'm not sure. So eventually it's investment decisions, right? So yeah. So that's a lot of things happening. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, look, it's coming up for 5 o'clock, and it's going to be a long weekend, so I'm sure everyone will have that in their mind. So I would like to thank very much Professor Chyi Lin Lee for his presentation today. Now, just as a reminder, we do run the seminar every 2 weeks. The next seminar is the 21st of June, and we're going to be having Professor Kenneth Gibb from